What was your damn I'm old moment? I heard some younger kids I worked with talk about how they wondered what it was like to live through 9/11. I mentioned that I was alive during the attack and they asked me to tell my story. Like I was a World War II or Vietnam vet. It hit me that I was a part of a completely different generation. I used to be the young guy in the office the old guys went to for computer help. I recently found myself going to one of the young guys in the office for computer help. I realized in that moment that I was old. Lol, we just knew computer stuff because we just used computers. Nowadays kids have so many online resources to learn about computers, and I think schools are also moving computer classes to lower grades. A nephew of a friend was learning JavaScript concepts in 5th grade. I was like, WTF, I didn't even know what programming was in 5th grade. When I realized I had become older than all the people in the shows I watch. This is so true. I'm 31 and whenever I look up some new celebrity they are always in their early 20s. Before, all the celebrities used to be older than us. I was telling my students that I graduated from high school in 1973 and one yelled out my mother wasn't even born then. Double quote. My son, when 6 years old, wanted to know at what moment the world turned to colors, given everything was black and white in antiquity. When I see a YouTube video I've watched before and it's almost a decade old, for me it was realizing that I bought Minecraft in late alpha, and my 5-year-old godson was recently trying to tell me how to play it. The new programmer had never heard of Office Space. I was working with 2 co-workers recently that had never heard of Wayne's World, and had no idea what song I was talking about when I mentioned Bohemian Rhapsody. Double quote. I felt so old. Hearing Weezer on the classic rock station. Remember when did Motley Crue become classic rock? Bowling for Soup's 1985 is now 15 years old and has now become the classic rock. When you and your doctor are the same age. Having to talk to cops that are obviously younger than me. And I'm only 27. Even sleeping hurts. I recently got a neck injury masturbating that's still sore after 3 f***ing weeks. When my back started hurting 24/7 and my doctor said it's a normal thing that comes with age, I'm 27. At 35 last year my feet just started to have chronic pain every time I woke up in the morning. Went to several doctors and did a ton of testing and the answer was, there's nothing wrong with you that concerns us. And here I am thinking, do I really have to live with this for the rest of my life? And the answer is yes. I wake up. My feet f***ing hurt and then an hour later they're fine. I helped raise my nephew. I held him when he was born. Read to him. Changed the diapers. And taught him how to read. He's about to graduate high school now. I still can't believe it. The little girl I used to babysit as a teenager just got married and had a baby. Seeing all the people I think of as kids growing up has been insane. I can't get over it. I get mad at people who park in front of my house. Why? I'm sure I am older than you and this doesn't bother me. I remember my mum getting furious if people threw things in our bins too. I never understood that and I still don't. Does that make you mad as well? In my early 20s, I found my old skateboard in my parents' garage. Rode down the driveway. Hit a rock. Fell on my hip and limped for a week. Edit. Grammar. Remembering that I used a typewriter when I was in kindergarten. Also remembering when one of my teachers during elementary school said, someday, it will be more unusual for a person to not have a personal computer than to have one. That was back when they had those old DOS computers at the school. Realizing I'm 45. Not understanding TikTok or Gen Z humor. I'm a cusper. Or an elder zoomer if you will. Close bracket. Older millennial here. I understand TikTok. I don't use it but I get it. I can see how it's appealing. Snapchat on the other hand. I just don't get it. Who is using this and why? Can't you just text pictures to your friends? Why is there a separate app for that when your texting app can already do that? Someone help me here. Realizing people born on the 9th of November 2001 were 18. Being called a dinosaur, remembering VHS tapes and having to have an external rewinder. I have worked with 3 people my daughter went to high school with. Just recently I saw the Seinfeld clip posted and another user asked what show it was. Being a child of the 80s, I was speaking to someone born in the 90s and they hadn't heard of the film Big. First person I ever met that hadn't. It was such a huge film. Me. Oh yeah, I remember playing that on Nintendo, talking about Metroid I think. Some kid. Like Nintendo Wii? Me. Jesus Christ, I didn't think I was that old. I showed my 17-year cousin NHL 99 on the N64. He was justly confused at how to use the controller. And legit asked me if it's charged yet so he could unplug the cord. 2000 is 20 years ago. This. And I just read a business newspaper. Some journalists still reference to 9/11. At some point even major world events become as old as ancient Greek philosophy. It was that day. Last week. When I found myself standing outside the mosh pit checking people for injuries as they got flung my way and guiding some to the safe zone. I used to be in the middle. Now I'm the mosh mom. If you're missing a shoe, I've probably got it. Close bracket. I just finished reading all 342 replies. Nobody beats what my aunt said. I never realized I was old until my youngest child started collecting social security. Double quote. I realized I understand very little of the slang younger people use. And I don't have any particular interest in doing so. Yeah. I have no desire to keep up with the apps neither. I'm perfectly fine in the lane where I'm at. I'm noticing. AOL was still a thing in my lifetime. Damn. I still remember exchanging emails before summer break to email my friends using AOL. Or just fking around in the chat rooms. Was watching a movie with my dad and 13 years old sister and she said look, it's that guy from the insurance commercial, and she was talking about Shaq. The Shaquille O'Neal. So I was like wow, imagine not knowing that Shaq is Shaq and just thinking he's the insurance actor. If she doesn't know of the Shaq then maybe we need to send her back to the factory for maintenance. Catching up with an old friend. She remarked. Notice we're talking more about our latest doctor visits and less about the new Star Wars movie. Double quote. That doesn't count. Easily the visit to the doctor was much better than the last Star Wars movie. IO. The day I heard Nirvana on the classic rock station. Realizing Nirvana's Nevermind is older now than every single Beatles album was when Nevermind was released. The fact that I get super excited over new things for my home. Lem, get that blender. I have saved my end stimulus check to buy a new refrigerator. Mine could die in the next few years, but I am super excited about telling anyone about updating appliances. Getting excited over having a bidet installed. I also get happy when I see plates and cups etc stacked neatly in the drying rack. Also, does anyone else have a preferred hob on the cooker and a certain wooden spoon they like to cook with? Some kids were talking. And I had to look up what they said on the Urban Dictionary website so I could understand what they meant. I actually pulled a Captain America and grabbed a notebook to write down top 30 phrases people nowadays use. I'm 26 in 2020. My siblings not knowing who Tony Hawk is. Tony Hawk's existential nightmare continues. Watching porn and getting distracted by the interior design of kitchen. Edit. Just watched a Blink 182 video from last year and Mark Hoppus looks like a grandfather. Lol, same thing. There were couple times when I was distracted by they've rented a really nice house for the shoot. Very nice shower tiling, so yeah. I remember when my mom came home from university classes and was so stoked to show me the web page she built and coded a horse to run across the screen. 2 years ago when 29 years old co-worker didn't know who Barbra Streisand is. That confuses me. Because I'm 27 and know who she is. I also very much remember when the Metcha Barbra Streisand episode of South Park came out. When I talked to someone and they didn't know that the Flintstones were more than vitamin mascots. Lord of the Rings is almost 20 years old. Toy Story 1 is 24 years old. I remember anxiously waiting for the lights to dim to watch The Little Mermaid in theaters when I was 6. I'm not old. But I'm not young. I find myself getting more and more relaxed about this every day. Life goes on. It's all good. Hired an otherwise totally sharp and worldly kid, around 20 at the time, who picked up the office phone for the first time, listened a moment, and held it out to me, saying I think there's something wrong with the phone. He had no idea what a dial tone was. Explaining to my kid how a house phone mounted to the wall worked for everyone. I still have mine. Came in handy during the last hurricane. Power was out and cell phone batteries needed to be conserved. But that old ass wall phone still had a dial tone. When I was a kid I got a Game Boy Color for Christmas, and at the time it was the absolute coolest, most modern piece of technology you could have. A few years ago I was short on money and sadly had to sell the Game Boy. When I was meeting with the seller she told me it was a Christmas gift for her 10-year-old son who loved vintage games. I handed out CDs with songs so my students could learn the states and capitals. They asked, "What do we do with them?" Double quote. I was born before CDs were invented, but I'd react the same way now. Talking in Slack today about being a kid of the 90s and realizing that was 30 f***ing years ago. I was around the first time rollerblades were a thing. Also depressing. I showed my students a picture of an overhead projector. They didn't know what it was. Same with a picture of a cassette tape Walkman. When I can still remember when Enron caused rolling blackouts in my state, when the younger generation has no idea what Enron is. A while back I was dating a girl about 10 years younger than me. At the time, I was 28 and she was 18. I should say, I don't normally date girls anywhere near that young. But this was just one of those crazy she just got dumped in my lap kind of situations. Anyway. We were on the phone and I made a perfect Simpsons reference. Topical. Funny. Just obscure enough. All your buddies would laugh. You know the ones. No reaction from her at all. Later that evening, I decided to look up when the episode I referenced first aired. Just for my own curiosity. It aired just about a year before she was born. Every time I have to tell someone I still have a landline. My place still has the old-fashioned 4-prong phone jacks. I remember when you didn't need area codes to call local. Rotary dialing 5 numbers to call your neighbor. Handsets tethered to the kitchen wall phone by a 15-foot long phone cord that was pulled so tight it was straight so you could go down the hall around the corner and into another room so you could close that down for some privacy. Every child in that age has been necklined at least once running through the kitchen while their mother was on the phone. Bell phones were so heavy you could knock out a grizzly with one swing. I read that the 2028 Olympics will be in LA and thought, wait. They were just there a few years ago. It turns out that 1984 will be 44 years ago in 2028. So the two LA Olympics will almost be half a century apart. It's weird because I so clearly remember my brand new Eddie the Eagle Adidas sports bag that I get for a recent birthday. Edit. Slightly embarrassing. It was Sam the Eagle, the mascot of the 1984 Olympics. Eddie the Eagle was a British ski jumper. 2 years ago at uni, 2 guys in my class started singing What's Going On? By 4 Non-Blondes. I'm sitting there getting nostalgic, remembering how I used to listen to that song on repeat on cassette when I was a kid. They then specifically mentioned He-Man and then one of the guys asks, "Does anyone here even know the original song?" That's when I realized they'd been talking about the meme the whole time and that I was f***ing old. Died a little inside. The other day I saw about 4 youths loitering down the street smoking cigarettes. Then I realized I was standing on my front porch glaring at them. Oh. How the tables have turned. I used to work with a guy who was 19 or 20 at the time. I can't remember. I was something like 29 or 30. We were talking about live televised car chases one day and I made a reference to a white Bronco. He looked at me blankly, having no idea what I was talking about. That was O.J. Simpson's getaway car, in case anybody reading this doesn't get the reference either. Close bracket. At a friend's place we switched on the radio and they played like 3 of our old favorites in a row. Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit, Incubus I think. Then the announcer said welcome back to old school radio. That hurt. Songs that came out when I was 10 or so are now on the classics stations. My son is catching up to my wife in height and I sound like a fight taking place in a bubble wrap factory when I get out of bed. I was talking to a customer who was 14 years younger than me. I was rattling off a lot of bands that I grew up listening to. The only one he heard of was Nirvana, but only that one song. When pro athletes started becoming younger than me, I think Rick Porcello was the first time this happened. That wasn't so bad. It really hit home when star pro athletes younger than me were retiring after having Hall of Fame careers. I was watching Kingsman 2. Colin Firth's character has lost his memory and was spending his days cataloging and drawing butterfly species and theorizing about their migration patterns. At one point he regained his memory and the fighting started back up, leaving me going, wait. Go back to the butterfly migration theories. That was actually kind of interesting. I once had a child ask me if I played Five Nights at Freddy's when I was a kid. It was this moment that I realized Amnesia, Dead Space, Silent Hill, and Resident Evil are ancient relics of the past that many of today's youth have not heard of. Then that got me to thinking, what other games do kids not know about? So I decided to ask some professional children and boy was it eye-opening. Games that these kids have never heard of. 1. Uncharted 2. Skylanders 3. COD 1. 2. And 3 4. Garry's Mod 5. Half-Life 1 and 2 6. Portal 1 and 2 7. The Ezio trilogy from Assassin's Creed 8. Just Cause 2. Once I collected the information and made it into a list, my arthritis started acting up and I forgot who I was.